Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sorting Thoughts podcast. Today, we are back with the new Halloween special episode, and I'm going to be talking about my scariest Halloween movies. They might not be everyone's, because I haven't picked like any staple horror movie like The Shining, The Exorcist, Poltergeist, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Scream. I haven't picked any of those. So if you're interested in that and want to figure out what my top 5 scariest Halloween movies are, then let's get into it. So to start everything off, I am going to start with the movie As Above, So Below. That was released in 2014. It is about a team of explorers ventures into the uncharted maze of bones that lies beneath the streets of Paris. They embark on a journey into madness and terror. So this movie is based in the catacombs, which is already a very scary place in my opinion. Like, I'm never setting foot there ever. But what did it for me in this movie was that, spoiler alert, of course, they were digging themselves deeper and deeper into the ground. So they're looking for the Philosopher's Stone that they talk about in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Nicholas Flamel's Philosopher's Stone. And so they get to it at one point, but they get stuck. And so they try to go back, but as they're trying to go back, everything is sort of reversed. And so they're not going up. Like, they're not noticing that everything is reversed and that they're actually just going deeper and deeper. And I feel like that's my sort of claustrophobic side of me that was triggered in this movie, because it is scary. Like, what scares me is that you are underground, first of all, and you think you're going up, but you're actually going down. And yeah, that is scary to me. Like, being potentially stuck underground is a fear that I've developed by living in Paris. And, like, sometimes when I was in the subway, my mind and my anxiety would be like, oh, can you imagine if all of a sudden everything stopped and like everything closed and you wouldn't be able to get out? Which is a scary thought. Like, that's so scary to be stuck underground. No, thank you. I'd rather stay above everything. So yeah, somewhere with no exit is very frightening to me. Like, that idea is very frightening. The jump scares were also really good. I did not think I was anticipating them that much. So the director must have done something right, because I have watched so many horror movies that I do have the ability now to prevent any jump scares. So I know when one is going to come, and I really like the directors that are really testing this idea of a jump scare, that it's going to be in that very precise moment, but turns out it's like just a few seconds later or a few seconds earlier. Earlier, I feel is better, because then when it's later, you kind of feel it coming and it's not surprising anymore. But, like, there's this timestamp of jump scares in horror movies that, yeah, I think anyone who's watched enough horror movies knows when a jump scare is going to come and how it's going to come also. And I feel like when I was watching this horror movie, it was half French, half American. And I feel like whenever French people are involved in a horror movie, it's somehow scarier. I don't know how to explain it, but there's also this other horror movie called The Deep House, where it's also half American or Canadian, half French. And in that one, it's two people going scuba diving and exploring a house that's been underwater for many years. And that one was also very frightening. And the way that the entities that were in the house were going faster than the two people with scuba diving gear, being stuck underwater and not being able to get out. Frightening. Frightening. Like you could see that, they were scared that their anxiety was rising up, and so that they were inhaling air more and more, and so they would be running out of air at one point. And that is scary, in my opinion. That's very scary. And we French people also did a Netflix TV show in 2019 that was called Marion. Oof. That one also scared me a little bit. And I'm not easily scared in front of horror stuff, just so you know. Like, I would watch a horror film as a comfort film. I'd rather watch a horror movie anytime, anywhere, whenever. And so I'm not easily scared. And that Marion Netflix TV show really got me back to when I was in the early stages of watching a horror film or a horror TV show, which is that sometimes, we all have that chair in our room that is there, but we use it like a coat rack. So, you're putting clothes on top of other clothes, and it just turns it into a gigantic clothes rack. And, sometimes at night when you look at it, depending on your lighting, you kind of see a certain shape, And so I hadn't had that in a while. And when I had my apartment back into the city that was near to my parents' house, I had this clothing rack, and on the sides I had a hat. And so I was looking, I don't know, I was just in my room and it was at night, and I had just finished an episode of Marion, and I caught myself looking into the distance and, thinking, as one does. But as I was looking at my clothing rack with the hat, it kind of had this shape of a man hiding behind my clothing rack. And so I did a double take, like, oh my God, whoa, hold on. What is this? So that's when I got really scared by it in a way, is because I started seeing things in shadows, imagining things that aren't there. So yeah, to me, As Above, So Below was scary. It might not have gotten you if you are not scared of digging yourself deeper into the ground, and that's okay. But I'm scared of that. I mean, did it trigger that fear? Probably. It probably did. But also, like, the part where they're running away from things that are in cloaks, like in black cloaks, kind of like the Ku Klux Klan cloaks, but in black. That was scary as shit. I was like, no, 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 no. No, I'm not. No, I'm not vibing with that. It's also the way that one of the guys got literally stuck in the ground. Like, physically, like his body was half up above and half up buried in the ground, like out of nowhere. So that one was, no, thank you. I'm good. I'm really good. Yeah, this one is not one that I watch religiously all over and over again. Once or twice was enough. But moving on, my second scariest Halloween movie is called Blink Twice. That was released in 2024, and it was directed by Zoe Kravitz. And this one is about a tech billionaire called Slater King. He meets a cocktail waitress, Frida, at his fundraising gala. He invites her to join him and his friends on a dream vacation on his private island. But despite the epic setting, beautiful people, ever-flowing champagne, and late-night dance parties, Frida can sense that there's something sinister hiding beneath the island's lush facade. This one, oh my gosh, this one was so good. It was very good. It's not a horror, gory, scary movie, but it's very psychological. And I love psychological movies. So that's why I'm putting it in this top 5. It's because the underneath it all is scary as shit. When you start the movie, it's all bubbly, it's all epic setting, beautiful villa, beautiful people, a lot of champagne, a lot of food. Like you're on vacation, like a beautiful pool, a lot of fun activities, all of that. So it doesn't start as a scary movie. But when you get to the build-up and when the main character starts to notice that all of this experience might already be a deja vu experience for her, and that all because it was triggered by a perfume smell, mind you. The build-up starts, and then when everything is revealed, it's like, oh, okay, this is scary. This is really scary because that is something that could be happening in real life. And this movie was also highly, I think, inspired by the PDD parties because Zoe Kravitz's dad, Lenny Kravitz, was very much friends with PDD at one point, and then out of nowhere, they stopped being associated with one another. And when you look at all the past photos of PDD's parties and how the aesthetic in this movie is, it is kind of matching. It is not confirmed that it is about PDD parties, but that's what a lot of people have been talking about. And the underneath it all kind of also resembles the case of PDD and his parties. If you try and see the movie that way, it's scary. But what's also scary in the film, properly speaking, is, spoiler alert, Slater King uses a sort of substance in this film that he gives to the people that he invites to his island. And he uses this substance to take advantage of them. And this substance will erase the traumatic experience that they've been put through. They go to sleep. Next morning, they wake up. Oh, yeah, last night was so great. We had so much fun. Like, they only remember the good parts. They don't remember anything about the bad parts. And also, when I was watching this movie, I thought of like it being on an island also made me think about the Jeffrey Epstein's case, where he had an island where he would invite people and take advantage of younger girls with other very powerful people. That's what I first thought about when I was watching this film. It's like, oh, okay, this all kind of resembles the Jeffrey Epstein's case. And then the PDD case came out and it was like, oh, it kind of resembles the two cases all at once. So it's very frightening to have someone take advantage of you and not remember it. So there's mind manipulation, which is scary, and a lot of trigger warning, like a lot of sexual abuse, unfortunately. But I loved the twist at the end of the whole island only being a facade and being revealed gradually towards the end, and then having the reveal of, oh, he is actually a piece of shit and taking advantage of people. But I also loved the ending where Frida, who Slater took advantage of, turned the substance against him, and then she took advantage of him to secure herself a money-filled life. That was karma for Slater, and I loved that. I love that the woman ends up winning in the end. Love that. I don't think I would have liked an open ending for this one. I feel like this one really is good as it is with this close ending, because I don't think I would have liked being left hanging on like what Frida did, and like how did she get over all of this trauma that happened to her twice. She did go twice to this island, but did not remember anything about the first experience because of that substance that he was using against her. And so I love that she somehow got revenge smartly against him. I love that. That was definitely karma. Also, one thing that I loved in this movie is to see Channing Tatum play something different. I just love when some actors are typecast a lot. Seeing him in something totally different and see his range was very much new, and I loved that. Then we have Immaculate, that was released in 2024. And this one is about an American nun who embarks on a journey when she joins a remote convent in the Italian countryside. However, her warm welcome quickly turns into a living nightmare when she discovers her new home harbors a sinister secret and unspeakable horrors. So this one is sort of a re-edition of Rosemary's Babies, I feel like. But everything happens in a church, which is frightening. You know, like a church setting in a horror movie, that always gets me. What's scary about this one is the concept of taking advantage of women's body in the name of Jesus Christ and wanting to reincarnate him through the DNA that they think they have. And it is crazy. And also all of it in the name of science. And that is something scary, like the boundaries that people are willing to break just in the name of whatever they believe in is like, okay, so even your faith or whatever you believe in doesn't stop you from going to this extreme of manipulating naive minds or taking advantage of people or making other people suffer. You know, that is something that is very scary to me. I feel like there's nothing scarier than someone that doesn't have any boundaries, that doesn't know where to stop or when to stop, or just simply doesn't want to. But also the atmosphere is very scary in the movie. When you're first watching the movie, you're like, I don't understand what's happening. I really don't. Like, maybe this is happening, but maybe this is also something that could be happening. So you're like theorizing throughout the beginning of the film, and you're like, what is going on? And then the main character gets pregnant when she's a nun. She doesn't have sexual intercourses. And they're all like, oh my God, she's Mary blessed by God or something like that. And all of it is very crazy. But some of these shots are really beautiful. Like the one where Sydney Sweeney is dressed kind of like Mary. And everyone is just idolizing her. And that is creepy and that is very scary. When she's clearly suffering from all of that, they don't care because they only see the fulfillment of that prophecy of Jesus Christ being reincarnated. And that is scary. That is very scary. And I also loved to see Alvaro Morte, the guy that plays the teacher in La Casa de Papel, in Money Heist. It was really interesting to see him in that role. But yeah, the cinematography and the production design was really beautiful to see. The tension is also very well built. And also at the end, we do not get to see what the baby looked like, but based on Sydney Sweeney's character's screams, it probably was something very horrifying. But there's this side of me that kind of wants to know what that thing looked like, because I don't think it was pretty. Then I decided to talk about Smile and Smile 2, one that was released in 2022 and the other that was released in 2024. The story takes place after witnessing a bizarre traumatic incident involving a patient. Dr. Rose Coder starts experiencing frightening occurrences that she can't explain. So this one really is about an entity that uses your traumas against you. That, for one, is frightening. The entity can never be destroyed. What? It's scary as hell. And it plays with your mind and reality. I mean, I think everything is there for it to be scary. The tension, the story, the entity, the smile that is triggered by the possession of the entity. Scary as hell. Like, it is creepy. It is very much creepy. And what I like about these two films is that it doesn't rely on the gore. There's some parts that are very gore, of course, but it doesn't rely on it. And the movie's strength really relies on Sosie Bacon's performance in the first film and Naomi Scott's performance in the second film. And it also rely on the cinematography that creates a very creepy and very unsettling atmosphere. Like, it was not like some other movies that were released in these past few years where you walk out of the theater room and you're disappointed. Like, after watching Smile 1 and Smile 2, you walk out of the theater and you still think about it. And you still try and make out how everything could have been different. And what I also like about these movies is that it also plays with the audience's perspective, specifically in the second one, where you really are in the mind of Naomi Scott's character. And it is unveiled at the end that this was actually all a manipulation of the entity, and that she continued her pop star activities, but we all thought that she was going insane, that she was like, held up in the hospital, and that, like, the entity made us really think that she was going crazy when she was actually not. It's manipulation, and both of these things were emphasized with both Sosie Bacon's and Naomi Scott's performance, as I've said before. And I had to talk about the two because, first of all, the first one, it was very something new. And I think it stayed with the audience so much because everything that was released by Blumhouse was not doing very well. And so I think for this one, there was a lot of expectations, and these expectations were reached. We don't really know anything about the entity, which is something that I usually like to have, is like really the origin of it all and like how did it start. We didn't get much of that, but it didn't feel like it was missing. Like they rounded the whole thing so that it wasn't missing in the plot. And they focused so much on the main character and the main character's traumas that you don't feel like it needs a lot more. It wouldn't add something to the script. It really wouldn't. There's already so much that you have to deal with. And so they did that very well in both the films. And also what I liked about the second one is that it really an anticipation that I had was that, sometimes sequels try to overstep the first one because the producers and everyone involved in it wants it to be so much more than what the first one was. And they don't really want to accept the fact that it might not do as well as the first film. But with this one, they really just continued the story. The two of them really are only connected by one character. And I think that was very well done. They were not overdoing it. They were just, continuing the story overall. And so if one day you ever get possessed by this entity and you have unhealed trauma, you're fucked. And last but not least, I absolutely had to mention a Ari Aster movie. And I will mention Midsommar, that was released in 2019. This one is about several friends who traveled to Sweden to study as anthropologists a summer festival that is held every 90 years in the remote hometown of one of them. What begins as a dream vacation in a place where the sun never sets gradually turns into a dark nightmare as the mysterious inhabitants invite them to participate in their disturbing festive activities. When I first watched this one, I was like, what the heck did I just watch? I felt like I had completely wasted 2.5 hours of my life, and that on top of it, I had spent money on it because I had rented it on Apple TV. And so I was like, why? But I thought this only because I didn't understand it the first time around. And so I decided to watch it a second time because I was like, this feels like it has so much potential that I can't be disappointed by it, Like, I can't. And I've heard that everybody loved it, so why am I not loving it? It's crazy. And so when I saw it for a second time, everything clicked all at once. Because actually, the whole story is explained to you in the first 5 seconds of the film with the painting. And so when I watched it the second time around, I really paused on the painting and was like, because I didn't give it much thought when I first watched it. And so when I watched it a second time, I was like, I'm pausing it. And so I tried to see it, and then I had it next to me on my phone when I was watching the film. And then I started to realize that the whole painting was the 4 acts that were taking place in the movie. So the first act being the death of Danny's parents and sister, the second act of them going to Sweden and being part of something that they don't know about, and then being excited about studying that cult. And then the third act is it getting very weird and sacrifices happening and people are starting to go missing, and you're starting to see that weird things are happening. And then the final act, everything is explained. When you start to think about this movie, you're like, okay, so this whole thing happened because a guy came from a cult, inserted himself in society, befriended a group of people, checked each one of them and their flaws, and then targeted the weakest person in that friend group. And then to make that person come with other people, he killed everyone around that person, and that person is Danny's character. He killed everyone she cared about, so that way she was isolated. Everything was not going good in her relationship, and so she was very vulnerable and isolated. He then invited her and her boyfriend's friend group to Sweden, and then the cult started to kill everyone in that friend group, but that person that is vulnerable and isolated. And that person that is vulnerable and isolated, he, the whole time he tried to make her feel special and understood, and that everyone in the cult was understanding her and her pain and whatever she was going through, and that there to be a support system for her when all her friends were not, even her boyfriend wasn't. They really twisted and manipulated her mind so then she would willingly stay with them and be their queen of this summer festival, and then that she would never leave. That is scary as heck. And a thing that is very also scary is that everything happens in daylight. Nothing happens in the dark. And when that movie came out, that was something very much new that hadn't been explored before. And Ari Aster really did it in a way that the cinematography and the design of the sets, it was all very pretty. Like the aesthetic of the movie is very much pleasing to the eye, but the story is completely not. It is completely sick and twisted. And so I had to mention this movie Midsommar because I love the fact that it's all very much light and flowery, and the ambiance is very festive, but it's actually totally the opposite. It's very much dark and twisted, and there is a big mastermind manipulator behind all this story. And so once you understand that, you're like, oh, this is actually genius. And it's not a horror movie per se in its aesthetic and the way the story is being told, but it's very psychological. And I love me a good psychological horrific movie. I think these ones work the best on me. I'm not one that is very much scared by, like slasher movies like Scream and all, but I love the story nonetheless. And so, yeah, I feel like horror movies are like the way you're scared by horror movies is very personal and really linked to one's person's fear. It was a really hard process for me to choose 5 films that are the scariest to me, but I've tried to think about how I felt after I saw the movie, but also how I felt when I was watching it. And I feel like these ones are the closest that I've been to being scared by a horror movie. And so, yeah, I hope you very much like this Halloween episode, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.